Welcome to today's Healing Our Sight podcast. I'm Denise Allen, and I have with me here today Mark Boyce. I found him through Melissa Daniels. Those of you who have followed this podcast know that Melissa and I are great friends, and she has worked with Mark in using a program that he's created. So we're going to talk about his story today and how that program came to be and what it can mean for those people who are looking for assistance with improving their vision. So welcome, Mark.
Hi, welcome, Denise. Nice to meet you.
I'm so glad to have you with me today. Let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about your strabismus story, when you were diagnosed and what the doctors initially did?
Yeah, sure. Now, it's going back, reaching into my memories the best I can. I was around about 4 years of age. And the first thing I remember is my father putting his finger up in the air and saying to me, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And I said, "Oh, two." And he said, "No, it's one." So anyway, the next thing I knew was I was in the hospital, in a hospital bed, and all I can remember about that is being very upset about my parents having to leave me there. I didn't really know what was going on. I knew maybe something to do with my eyes. Anyway, next thing I remember was being back at home and my father holding his finger up and saying, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And I said, "Well, one." Very good. So that's my very, very vague recollection of my early childhood. I do remember having to wear glasses with a patch. I had these great big pair of glasses on with this huge white bandage wrapped around one lens. I probably wore that for several months, I would guess. And then that came off, and I pretty much went through life probably to around about the age of, quite early on, I would say 12, 13, maybe a little bit older. And a friend of mine used to say to me, "When I talk to you, it's very strange." I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Well, it looks like you're always looking past me or not looking at me." I said, "Oh." Of course, I had no realization that I had an issue with my eyes. I thought I was pretty much normal. Anyway, it probably wasn't until a bit later in life I started to realize there was an issue. My ex-wife, she said to me that when she met me, just before meeting me, that some spiritual woman said, "You'll meet a man with strange eyes," which is a bit bizarre. And anyway, she said that to me, and I thought she was maybe referring to the color of my eyes, because my eyes are like a browny green. They're not blue or brown, but they're a strange mix. And that's all I thought about, but I didn't think it was anything else. That relationship unfortunately failed many, many years ago. I met my second wife, and it wasn't until one day we had a big argument, and she said to me, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." So I am looking at you. And I thought, oh. Anyway, I kind of knew my left eye was very weak, and I kind of took to looking in the mirror, and I thought, yeah, geez, my left eye is actually pointing out to the left-hand side. And I kind of then became subconscious of it. And that had a pretty much detrimental effect on my life, because I then became very aware of my eyes being unusual. And it really, it's hard to describe it. It does have a huge impact. You don't like looking at people in their eyes. You don't like looking at them because you feel they're looking at you in a strange fashion, thinking, geez, this guy looks a bit of a freak. So it does have a psychological effect. It affected my career. I didn't realize my eyesight was a problem, but I wanted to be a fighter pilot, for instance, when I was younger. And I failed the tests, and that was down to vision. I thought maybe it was just because my left eye was weak. But no, it's because I couldn't see 3D.
They don't ever explain that to you either, do they?
No, that's right. It's just basically, yeah, your eye is weak. Sorry, we can't take you on. So yeah, look, it affects you in many ways. I was never able to play ball games. Of course, being originally English, football was a big thing at school, and that kind of thing forms the topic of conversation, especially when you meet new people. The first thing they say, "Oh, what team do you support?" I don't like football, don't enjoy it. There's nothing really else much to talk about. It's hard to find things in common with other people. And sport is usually the one thing that kind of makes you bond. So I guess subconsciously, it kind of made me a bit of a recluse. I didn't really do much socializing. It's very hard to find people that are interested in electronics and software, in the street. You just don't really meet those people in the workplace.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the positive side of that is I spent plenty of time learning my skills. I spent most of my time in the school holidays and things, studying electronics, studying software, and that kind of thing. So it gave me it helped in other ways.
Right.
Anyway, eventually, I'm now 57 years old, and going back maybe, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, or a bit longer, I made a decision to get my eyes corrected again. So I booked an appointment, and 5 years later, the opportunity came up. I had the eyes straightened, and to me, it was a massive boost. My eyes are reasonably straight now, and yeah, in terms of confidence, I now look people directly in the face. I speak with more confidence. I talk to them with more confidence. It's completely changed my life just having the operation. So look, that's I guess my story in a nutshell. I obviously, with the software, I decided, look, I would really like to experience 3D vision.
Yeah.
I was told by the surgeon it's never going to be possible. And so I thought, well, you've set the challenge. So yeah, I would say in the past 10 years or so, I've been working on ideas on how to test to see if I can see 3D. And later on, now the VR stuff has become available. I wanted to develop an application that would actually exercise your eyes to help you acquire 3D.
Right. Let me just backtrack just a tiny bit, because you said you've been working on this for 10 years, but the surgery wasn't 10 years ago, right?
That's correct, yes.
So you had that desire to develop your 3D before you went in and had the surgery to align your eyes.
That's right. I didn't have access to any VR hardware. VR was very new, very expensive. But I had access to computers, obviously. I wrote I didn't write a program. I created more like graphic images on the screen, like with red and blue squares, and tried to converge those squares with my eyes. I thought if I can get those squares converged, maybe I'll see 3D. But obviously, you need a bit more than that to see 3D.
Did you know about vision therapy when you started creating the programs for yourself?
No.
Or how did all of that come about? I'm a little confused about how that happened.
Just through my own inquisitiveness, I guess. I just like to experiment. I had no idea there was vision therapy.
Wow.
So, just basically playing with my own eyes. I would put test patterns on the screen and try to make things converge. It probably wasn't a bit later until I think on YouTube I saw some dual camera stereoscopic videos. And I thought, oh, wow, what a good idea. And so I used the same red-blue glasses to try and visualize those. But it had no effect on me. I thought, oh, Jesus, it's just a flat picture. Right. So I wasn't impressed by it. But it wasn't until I had my second operation did I rush out and buy myself a VR headset. And I thought, right, I'm going to create some 3D software on this VR headset and really, really go for it. I read somewhere about the concept of reducing the vision in one eye, in the good eye. I can't remember where I read that, but that's going back quite a number of years ago.
Okay.
I think it was something to do with Tetris. There was a Tetris game out there. And I searched high and low for it, and I couldn't find it. And I thought, well, look, I can write that myself. So the first thing I wrote wasn't a Tetris game. The first thing I wrote was, I think I simulated the Brock string on the headset. So that's kind of how I started out, really.
And where did you learn about the Brock string?
Geez, that's a question. I don't know. It was, again, such a long time ago. It wasn't until I read the book by Stereo Sue.
Yes. Sue Barry's book, Fixing My Gaze.
Fixing My Gaze, that's the one. Yeah, Fixing My Gaze. That kind of given me that did give me real inspiration.
Okay.
Because I was told by so many people, I say people, by professionals, that it's not possible to acquire 3D vision if you've never had it.
Right.
And that kind of that was very disheartening. So because it was coming from all directions from professionals, you think, yeah, am I actually wasting my time?
Mm-hmm.
And I initially developed my first app on a piece of hardware called the Oculus DK2. And I spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours, probably a year's worth of work developing the app on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, the headset eventually broke down. And that combined with the optometrist, because I visit the optometrist, once every 2 years, I kind of gave up with it. And it wasn't until I discovered that book until I think, geez, well, somebody's actually achieved it through therapy.
Right.
So I thought, well, there must be something to it. So I thought, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to try again. So that's why I went back in earnest, which was probably 2 years ago now. I bought the Quest 2 and I started developing a new application specifically for my own purposes.
Right. Because there wasn't a vision therapy doctor close to you, right?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mark, how'd you come up with the name Equal Eyes for this program that you wrote for yourself?
Good question. It basically started out with the name of Strabismus Exerciser. And I thought, oh, geez, it's actually quite a dull name. It's not very catchy. And my sister came to visit from the UK to Australia, and we were talking about it. And she said, "Yeah, you need something really catchy." And I said, "Oh, go on, think of something." And she came up with visual eyes. Visualize. Yeah, sounds great. So that kind of stuck. And then it was brought to my attention there was actually a place called Visual Eyes in Hobart. I thought, bugger. So through support from my family, they all got together and thought, oh, what should we call it? And my mother, in fact, came up with Equal Eyes, as in equalize. I thought, sounds good to me. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And so that's how it came about. Look, I do sometimes call it Easy Eyes by accident. I thought, well, maybe I should have called it Easy Eyes, but
I like the fact that when you say equal eyes as two words, and then you say it as one word, equalize, you're equalizing how your eyes work together, which
exactly
what we're after here, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And,
so
I just realized we didn't even mention where you are located, and this kind of makes it a little more easy to understand why there's not a vision therapy doctor where you are, right? So tell everyone where you live.
I'm in Hobart, Tasmania. People get that confused with Tanzania. Tasmania is in Australia. Tanzania is in Africa.
Okay.
So, yeah, in Tasmania, we're pretty much on the southern tip of the world. We're disconnected from the mainland. Tasmania has a population of 500,000, and it's about the size of England. So England has a population of 65 million. Tasmania, 500,000. So yeah, we're pretty sparse. There's a sparse population here. And of course, we don't have all the facilities that there are on the mainland or a country like America. Mm-hmm. There are a number of opticians here, and I've recently found out there is a visual therapist per se, but I can't really say much about them. I don't know much about them. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they don't use VR technology.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to say what they do if you haven't actually
that's right.
contact with them, right? Yeah. But I know that you do say that you recommend people use this program under the direction of a professional.
Look, absolutely. Even though myself, I'm happy with using it under my own direction. Mm-hmm. I'm a techie head, so I experiment. In producing the application, I did a lot of experimentation with my eyes. Mm-hmm. So I kind of know where I'm going with it. And I know the effects it's having on my eyes. So if I feel like I'm doing something which is probably detrimental to my vision, I ease off on that particular exercise. But the majority of people, even though most people are getting more and more tech savvy, you're playing with your body. So I would certainly recommend you get professional advice or professional direction. As it's out in the public domain, I really feel it should be used as a tool to supplement your visual therapy. That's my personal belief.
But there's probably people like you who don't have access to that kind of help, right?
That's right. I mean, even if it's a case of going to the optometrist and perhaps getting advice, I've suggested to people maybe they take their headset with them when they visit the optometrist, just to maybe get a feel to as what their condition actually is, because everybody is different. They all have different causes behind the vision problem. Maybe it's a diet, maybe it's a condition, a mental condition, maybe it's a disease. You just don't know. So it's always good to get advice before using this kind of application, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Can you tell us a little bit about how you go about coming up with the games and what goes into creating them?
Yeah, sure. Sometimes I suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, wow, wouldn't that be a good idea? Like I've got lots of ideas in my head now. Like an interesting one was there's one called the tunnel, which is basically you're in a view from a vehicle looking down the road. And that came about. I was on a long trip. My wife was driving, and it was a boring long trip. And I was kind of looking at the white lines in the road, and I found myself trying to converge the white lines because I noticed the center line kind of split apart, like the Brock string. It would go off in two slightly different directions. And it was actually fun trying to follow that white line and keep as you curved around bends and things, trying to keep those white lines converge with your eyes. I thought that would make a fantastic exercise. I thought throw in some nice, maybe some music in the background, and that could be a nice simple exercise where you just sit on the couch and just enjoy the journey. So that's how that one came about. Nice. The things that the Coit's ropes, that was a suggestion from a friend of mine who also has strabismus. And he said to me, have you ever heard of the Coit's ropes? I said, no. It's basically two ropes overlapping each other. So the Coit's ropes were born. The ball exerciser is my favorite of all tests or exercises. I came up with that one. I was thinking, right, the Brock string is good, but your eyes are pretty stationary. They're not moving around. You're concentrating on a bead on the string, and you maybe slide that bead up and down the string, but that's creating minimal movement. That's creating a very small amount of movement in your eyes. So I thought, well, how about if that bead was actually smoothly moving around in 3D space? And so I created the ball exerciser, which does that very thing. And I found for me, it's fantastic. The ball moves off into the distance. It comes back right up to your nose. So it heads off probably 100 meters, 300 foot away. Then it comes right back to the tip of your nose. But not only that, it also goes off on a tangent sideways. And you're constantly trying to converge on that ball. And so what you're doing, both eyes are converging on the ball, and they are tracking it. So it's kind of exercising the muscles controlling your eyes, as well as helping you maintain convergence. And for me, that exercise I use as a warm-up every day. And I find after doing that exercise, I can converge on anything at distance, at close range. It's really, really good. And it helps with the other exercises. So that one I came up with just through experimentation.
Well, that sounds great. So you've had a lot of improvement in your vision from all of these things that you've created.
For sure. After the operation, once my eyes settled down after a few weeks, they were corrected at the day. They had adjustable suitors, and they were corrected at the day. But after about 2 weeks, the eyes kind of drifted to their natural locations. A lot better. I had about 45 degrees of error between my eyes before the operation, and that came down to about probably maybe 8 to 10 degrees once the eyes had healed. And after using in particular the ball exerciser, now I can converge on an item, whereas before I could not. It took a lot of effort, even after the operation, to actually bring an item in your sight to overlay itself in both eyes. Now I can do it. In fact, it's pretty much natural for me now. Sometimes, the image does separate,
Mhm.
and I think, oh, geez, it's separated. And I look at it, I concentrate on that item, and within a split second, it's back as single vision.
That's
So
great.
it's helped me extensively. Also, my amblyonic eye, my weak eye,
Mhm.
I feel the vision is also improving there too. Initially, with my left eye open only, I would see lots of snow in the image. It was
Mhm.
almost like it was like a very weak television signal. You're not quite tuned in correctly. And now I'm actually able to make out, not with ease, it's not perfect, but it's getting better. I'm able to read some text with my left eye, and that was unheard of before my operation.
Yeah.
So the
Is
effect
your
on,
is your weaker eye, your amblyopic eye, able to be corrected to 20/20, or that's not even something that they do with your glasses then?
no, it's purely it's a neural thing
Mhm.
to do with the communication from the eye to the brain. It's like a low speed internet connection. It's you can get some data through, but you don't get it all through in the same amount of time. And that's something I'm hoping that visual therapy through my application is going to improve.
Yeah.
That's my long term goal, is to get my eye back up to the same level as my good eye.
Awesome.
And it already I've seen improvements. So, and I've only been using it in earnest probably 2 or 3 months.
Wow. Okay. And you have it for sale on your website, right?
That's correct. Yes.
How did you decide how much you were going to charge for this program that you spent countless hours making?
Um, the original intention was just to get the program out there. I wanted something that other people could use, probably partially for my own benefit, because I was interested in the feedback.
Mhm.
How other people using it may come up with good ideas on how it could be improved.
Right.
But because it's taking all my time, my heart goes out to my wife. She's very, very, very tolerant. And there's lots of things that have to be done around the house. I've neglected gardening. There's construction work to be done.
Yeah.
And she was getting pretty upset that I was just I would come home from work and I would spend the whole evening in front of the computer. She went to bed and I was still in front of the computer, and that extended to weekends. So I had to provide some kind of compensation. I said, look, I can make some money from this, I hope.
Mhm.
Um, so she basically earns the money. I sell the product. So I had to charge for it.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Well, that I think maybe you could charge more than what you're charging. Is what I was getting
yeah,
at there.
yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah.
As I said, in order to justify me working on the computer and spending all those hours away from my wife, neglecting the housework, neglecting house repairs and maintenance and so on,
Mhm.
I'm using the income as a income stream. Well, it's not really a stream at the moment; it's bits and pieces um, to basically do things for my wife.
Mhm.
Give her a holiday. She wants to go back to Hungary for a visit her family. She hasn't seen them in 6 years,
Wow.
and so it's going towards paying for things like that. And it gives me justification to continue my work.
Right.
I would love to continue with the development, but yeah, I have a life to pay for. I have an income from my full time job, but that covers the bills. But
Well,
it doesn't cover my absence.
yes. But programs like this are actually usually a subscription that's a monthly amount. And so it's an ongoing expense for people. Actually, pricing it where you have is really a gift to the people who are going to purchase it and use it and give feedback and all of those things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the intention, right? Is that you're helping yourself, but you're also able to help other people.
That was the intention of the application. That maybe if it is growing. The application is getting more and more features added to it. I don't know. Maybe down the track, I might have a subscription service, maybe for support. I,
Mhm.
I find in development is probably 20% of my time. The other 80% is answering all the questions.
Um,
I get so many questions on the Facebook forum, for instance.
Mm.
That really takes most of my time. And even though I'm happy to discuss things with people because it also helps me, the support side, and as the group is getting bigger, there's probably 20 plus people in the group at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The major part of my time is, looking into their issues and trying to answer the questions and also support them in using the application. So
Yeah.
maybe that's something I could consider down the track as maybe a subscription on the support. Say, I don't know, 3 months free, and then maybe a few dollars a month for support.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is the ideas I possibly have in my head.
Are the questions things that anyone besides you would be able to answer? Or, I mean, could you outsource a little bit of the support part of it at all, do you think?
Yeah, look, I'm not an optometrist. That's the first thing.
Mm.
So I can't answer questions related to people's specific conditions. If they're similar to mine, I can possibly help them. Support is mainly in how they get the most out of the application. And there's some questions like, how do I install the app, or how do I update the app, and why is this not working? So obviously that's technical support in using the application.
Mm-hmm.
It's not particularly, I wouldn't say it's not particularly user friendly. It's kind of self-driven.
Okay.
So at this point in time, it's not a structured program. It's basically exercises which have been designed as a continuation from possibly the therapy you're already having.
Okay.
So it's not a course. It doesn't take you, from a beginner to an advanced level, or I forget that there's a term that Melissa uses, graduation.
Right. Yeah. Because she did graduate from vision therapy, basically,
That's right.
as
Yes.
she explained when we spoke. Yeah. Do you have feedback from how it has helped some of the people who've been using it then?
I have. Again, we mentioned Melissa. She's discovered now that she can use the quoits to her advantage. She's actually managed to see depth vision with the quoits. She was very excited about that. I was excited to learn about that.
Uh-huh.
Another, I call them patients, a colleague of mine in Italy. When he used the application right from the outset, he was absolutely amazed. He said he was so thankful about the app. He said for the very first time, he's managed to see his fingers with some depth perception.
Okay.
He said that's never ever happened to him before, so he was absolutely ecstatic about that. So I'm getting some good feedback. It's early days. It's early days. Vision therapy can take from months to years.
Right.
We've been out there for you can count the weeks basically. It's been out there maybe 8-10 weeks. So it's very early days.
Great.
Me, of course, I've already discussed. I've already seen major improvements in my vision.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And you have a version of it that people can use just on their Android phone, right?
yeah, the big problem with the application, it requires an Oculus Quest 2. So I thought, geez, how many people can afford an Oculus Quest 2? I had to save up for one personally. Most people have mobile phones. The Android is very popular, the Samsung Galaxies and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to develop it for existing hardware. So if you own an Android, then there is a version of it. So basically, you're just paying for the software. In fact, the software is even cheaper than the Oculus Quest software.
Right.
So for a very low cost, we're talking $50, $60, you can have the application on your phone. It requires something called Google Cardboard, which is just a holder which holds the phone in front of your eyes with a couple of lenses. I think they're about $18-$20.
Okay.
It straps the phone to your head. So that combined with your mobile phone, and you've got yourself I'll call it a rudimentary solution.
Okay.
Ironically, it's not been taken up by anybody. I was very surprised. I thought that would be very popular, but at this stage, it's mainly users of the Oculus Quest
Okay.
that have bought the software. But
Well,
it's available.
and the people who are using it are used to either spending money for vision therapy and that's going to be a lot more money, or maybe they've used some of the other subscription services even. Is that the people that have found you so far, or do you have people that have found you that really don't have access to any vision therapy at all?
It's mainly people that have had some vision therapy. And of course, their gripe is they've had to travel, for many hours to get to their therapist, and the price is very high.
Right.
I think the beauty of Equalize is they can maybe visit their therapist far less frequently. They can, maybe biannually or something. Then they can come back in home and they can do their own exercises, knowing the areas they should be concentrating on.
Right. Well, because it's something that we have to do every day anyway. So if we can do it with virtual reality, that's giving a greater amount of feedback to our brain about what's going on visually.
Right. And on top of that, you can make your own adjustments. Generally, if you're going to a visual therapist, you may find, well, I could actually increase the amount of work I'm putting into this. And so you can make your adjustments on the fly. Whereas if you go to a vision therapist, he has to make the adjustments.
Okay. It's really taking the matters into your own hands, isn't it?
Well, it is,
yeah, for sure.
I think providing like from the outset what you're trying to achieve, there's probably no harm in continuing with your own therapy at home. Yeah. Obviously, the concern is I don't want to worsen somebody's condition.
Absolutely.
And so it's always a good idea just even you have the one visit, it's always a good idea just to get an idea of what you're trying to achieve. Because most people, I say most people, some people may not have the understanding of depth perception and convergence. Then what's convergence? If they don't know, then they don't know what they're trying to achieve with the software. Right. I can certainly advise them,
but that's still not really your job, honestly, right?
No. If I was an optician, then it'll be different.
Yeah, exactly. As a software developer, it's probably a little bit outside of your.
Yeah.
Right.
I know how it works for me, and I would probably say what works for me would work for 99% of the population. But anything medical, you have to tread with some caution.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that we tend to hear the horror stories, the person who tried to do something on their own and made their vision worse. I think Melissa even said she was doing stuff on her own where she could tell she was making things worse.
Well, that's right.
And that's when, right. But you can tell, that's the thing. And
you
then you say, okay, well, that's not what I need to be continued to do. Because obviously I don't want things to get worse.
It's not like it's going to all of a sudden, you wake up one morning and my God, I'm blind in one eye. Everything you do with vision therapy is a very slow transition, a painfully slow transition. So if you can see things aren't improving, or maybe you're experiencing more double vision, then you just hold off on those exercises and maybe seek some further guidance. Right. It's not going to make you blind, or all of a sudden you wake up one day and you see the world in different colors. It's all gradual.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I noticed even though we were being very careful when in my vision therapy, I started to develop a little bit of double vision. And at that point, we backed off the therapy and started to look at other options, which is how I ended up in surgery and doing the therapy after the surgery, after my eyes were aligned. So I think that there's a lot of things that go into it that people just need to be wise. Right.
I've read your story, and it was fascinating that you had lots of visual therapy prior to surgery, and you got nowhere with it. But after having the surgery, your eyes were probably in a more suitable position to then make that fine adjustment, let's say.
Right.
Certainly a success story.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome that you've put this together for people, and I'm looking forward to getting it and using it. I've got to get the Oculus myself. I haven't got one yet. So, that's on my radar to get that going pretty soon.
Fantastic.
And we'll have to chat further when we have
By all
feedback
means,
from
absolutely.
you, other people that have used it at that point, right? And we look forward to great things from this. Do you have any final words for the people who are going to be listening today?
Yeah, maybe look, certainly give it a try. If you don't want to splash out with the full Oculus Quest 2, then maybe try it on the Android. Get a feel for what it has to offer. Okay. By all means, I'll give you all the support I can, and wish you the best of luck.
Okay. So there's a Facebook group that you use to support people, right? Do you want to tell the listeners where they can find that?
Yes, if they basically look for Avalon Web VR. So that's, Avalon is actually a part of England. It's an island, a flat plain area of England, so Avalon Web, W-E-B, so Avalon Web VR, VR for virtual reality. Do a search for that, and please join the group.
And is that your website address for when people want to buy the program?
Yeah, the website is www.avalonweb.com.au.
Okay. And I will put that in the show notes also for people. So
Wonderful.
they'll
Thank you.
be able to access it there too. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll chat again.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Denise. Nice talking to you.
Thank you. If you're interested in purchasing Mark's virtual reality program, Equalize, go to his website, avalonweb.com.au. Enter the code DNVR to receive 10% off on your purchase. Please follow this podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and share it on your favorite social media or with your favorite people. To leave comments or suggest a guest, please go to the Healing Our Sight Facebook page. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening.